uh, one is 0, and yes, the grammar is s2 1 is 0 or hash 1.
1 is 0 or hash 1. Okay. Now, in the second case, what is happening? In the second case, up to a certain point, you have, yes, up to a certain point, you have flipped bits. After that, you have equal bits. And then you have the middle element hash. How will you do it? If you start from either end, up to a certain length, you are going to have flipped bits. After that, till the middle element, you're going to have equal bits. And then you will have end with hash.
So like I have to do something that
Sorry? Anybody else can also try.
ma'am, so I can have something that s goes to 1 is 0, or it goes to 0 a1 hash 1 a1, so that a generates 0 1 star.
But then if you have 1 hash A1 A1 1, then the two A1s can generate different things, right? You don't have any control after that. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding. Can you write it down?
Ma'am, can you please repeat?
So maybe can you write down what you just said? Maybe I misunderstood.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I have written it down.
Okay. Okay, 1 minute. 0 A1 hash 1 A1 0 A1 hash 1 A1, and then A is going to 0 A 1 A or epsilon. So what is the logic behind this?
Ma'am, so the beginning and the end of the string are flipped. Like it begins with ones and it ends with zeros. And the middle part I am giving using that 0 A1 hash 1 A1. So A here generates W. W is any 01 string. So it is a
But
01 star.
if you have A in different places, the same W will not be generated, right? And it's not W exactly. You're in one place you're generating W reverse. On the left side you're generating W reverse. On the right side you're generating W.
So like in the left side it should be W reverse and on the right side it should be W.
On the left side it should be W reverse, and on the right side it should be W, right? This is not doing that, right?
Yes.
If you have A's in two different places, you have no control anymore. So what should you do? Any answers?
Shall I write it down?
No, I have it written down. I can do it.
No, actually, I have my tab ready.
Oh, so I'll just write it down, and then if necessary, we can just.
Oops. Okay, okay. Oh, so you are typing. Okay, okay.
Uh, okay, so this is the answer. So what are we doing? The start symbol is S. Now we have two cases. So to indicate the two cases, we are just taking the union of the two cases, right? So we have a T and a Q. T is generating the strings of the second form. That is, if Bn is of the form 1 to the n. So then what is T doing? T, as you suggested, T is generating 1, T 0, and then at some point it's going to end with a hash 1. What is Q doing? Q is supposed to generate the first case, the strings of the first case. Now notice that I spoke of binary representation, and I specifically mentioned that all these strings will start with a 1. So we wanted a proper binary representation. That's why for Q, the Q is generating 1 R0. Okay, because as we saw, the leftmost bit and the rightmost bit in the first case are flipped. And because we are in the binary representation, the leftmost bit is 1. So now what is R doing? R is supposed to generate the rest of the string, leaving out the first and the leftmost and the rightmost bit. So then R, in the beginning, R is just generating the ending. So in Bn reverse, the leading ones, in Bn the ending ones. So R will generate a 1 and a corresponding 0 on the right hand side up to a certain point. After that, R is going to generate a 0 and a 1. So this 0 is in Bn, this is basically the rightmost 0. After which we have this one, like after this, so we had this 1 W 0 1 to the I. So when I reach 0 A 1, A is supposed to generate that part of the string of Bn reverse hash Bn plus 1, which is W reverse 1 hash 1 W. This is what A is supposed to do. Now in A, what we know is over there we have uh, 1A1. So W's are all going to be the same. And then uh, uh, the bits of W's are going to be the same. So you have 1A1, 0A0, same bits are being generated, and it ends in a hash.
Ma'am, so in A, it can also generate 0 hash 0, but will that work?
0 hash A0.
No, 0 hash 0.
Oh, we have to end with a 1, right? Okay, okay. Let me edit. Yeah, the end case will be this 1 hash 1. So in the first case, we are starting with a 1, and the assumption is that we are ending with a 1. Otherwise, we are in the second case. Is it fine? Any questions? Anybody, any questions?
Now I have a different question not related to this.
Okay, so then just wait. Yashika, you wanted to give a PDA. Can you please describe it? How are you dealing with the two cases?
Yes, ma'am. So I couldn't think for the second case, like when we have all the ones and like one to the power n and zero. Like if it doesn't end with one, then I can't think of a PD for that.
No, so what is can you define what a PDA is?
So like for the first case, let's say we have a form of 1 0 x and 1 to the power y.
No. Just in general, for a PDA, do you or do you not have non-determinism?
Um, I don't know. Like this PDA was NPDA, like non-deterministic.
Right. So you have non-determinism, right?
Yes.
Now if you have two cases, so suppose you are generating the union of two languages. Can you design, and you have the PDAs for each of the languages, can you design a PDA for the union of the two languages?
But we have a single stack, right? We can't use two
Yeah,
stacks.
that's okay, but how do you use non-determinism? You have a single stack, but you can sort of choose uh, which string you are generating, right?
Yes, ma'am. I have to think about this.
Okay, so this is a question to everybody. We have seen CFGs. So suppose I want to generate, I'll write it down. Just give me a minute. So we have seen that if I'm given a CFG G1 for L1, language L1, and G2 for language L2, then we have seen that if I take the union of L1 and L2, I know how to make a CFG quite easily because I'm adding this new CFG. Let's say the start symbol of G1 was S1 and the start symbol of G2 was S2. Then I'll create a new start symbol for the language for the grammar of the language L1 union L2. Let's call it S, and then I'm just adding a new production saying S goes to S1 or S2, and then I will get the grammar for union of L1 and L2. Now the general question is, can you design a PDA? So suppose I'm given a PDA for L1 and a PDA for L2. Can you design a PDA for L1 cup L2? So notice that if you do this, then immediately you can apply that. So this is one way of immediately getting a PDA for for question 1B, where you basically have two cases. Is my question clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so someone has a suggestion. Create a new start state. Make epsilon transition to start states of P1, P2 without changing the stack. Yeah, okay, so the rest of you can think about it. Try to work this out. It's very easy. Yeah, Deep, you had a question?
Yes, ma'am. But DCFL by but is closed under complementation. So is the converse true that a CFL that is closed under complementation is a DCFL?
No,
No.
no.
So have they done palindromes?
Yeah, I mean normal palindrome. Like what it reads the same from both sides, that thing, or
So Professor Das, have they done the example of palindromes?
Uh,
So I
think,
think you
but
have an example in the tutorial.
maybe I do not fully remember that, but the answer is no.
Yeah.
so there is no real way of identifying a DCFL just like that. Like you have to first construct it and then only.
That's an interesting question. So, how to identify a DCFL and how to identify something as not a DCFL?
So the not DCFL, I think you gave in the like the solution you gave in the short test. Like if it's not closed under complementation, then it can't be a DCFL.
True, but again, this is not a two-way implication.
No, so I'm asking the other way. Like how do we do the other way?
So there are several things to prove something is a DCFL. One possibility is you just design a deterministic PDA. Okay, like regular languages, you build something like DFA, NFA, regular expression, and this proves that certain language is regular. And for DPDA also, you design something like it, sorry, for a DCFL, you design a DPDA. Then it establishes that this is a deterministic context-free language. In order to prove that something is not a deterministic context-free language, we have not covered some such things. If I am not mistaken, so you just, I am just typing. So there is a paper written by somebody called Sheng, most likely. So this is a clumping lemma which is applicable to DCFL. So in order to prove that certain language is not deterministic context free, you may use this lemma. But this lemma, this is a kind of pumping lemma for DCFL. So I can give you an explicit link. For now, for the moment, I do not have one. I have downloaded this paper and I have somewhere. Anyway, that's not an important thing. Thing is that you can use this pumping lemma for DCFL. Unfortunately, this is much more complicated than the pumping lemma for normal CFL. And proving it may be a little difficult because that paper uses some concepts from parsing, LR parsers and all that stuff. Yeah, so that may be an answer.
Okay, sir, got it.
So Professor Das, there is a question by Ritoban in the chat about the programming assignment.
Yeah, I think I have already sent him an email.
Oh, okay.
Have I?
So I think you sent me an email.
Who you?
Yes, sir.
No, I have sent mails to. Okay, let me clarify. So, yeah, do not use any STL because that is clearly written. Right, this is the last sentence.
So STL containers, right? Nothing else. Everything else is there.
What?
So STL containers like vector map,
No, no,
whatever.
any of these things. Why
None
do
of
you
those, right?
need vectors? Just use arrays.
Okay, I got that. Like
Yeah,
everything else is there, na? Like IO stream, everything,
I use
classes.
because that is not, I am not very much worried. How you input output doesn't matter. But in this exercise, programming exercise, I require you to be careful and I mean, you should manage your own data structures, whatever.
So we'll just make our own data structure. That's okay. Fine.
Yes, that's the idea. Otherwise, there is practically nothing in the question, right? You should be responsible for entire of your data structure. But how you do I/O, this doesn't matter.
It's okay. Like we can make our own data structure classes for handling this stuff, right?
Yeah. So you write C in, C out, printf, scanf, it doesn't matter. This is not programmatically important for this case.
And so classes are allowed, na? It's C++.
Class you can use, class structure, whatever.
Sure.
You can.
Got it. Sir.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, I would like to ask a question. So have you thought about that cyclic shift exercise that we started near the end of the last tutorial session? Yeah, tell something.
Sir, can you please explain the part which you told last tutorial once more?
Which one? This question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I will give you an example. Should I give you now, or we will defer it to tomorrow when the crowd is slightly stronger? Today I can see only 8. Tomorrow we expect 50 plus. So we may wait until tomorrow. I will give you an explicit example. But have you thought about it? That's the question.
Sir, I was saying that can you like explain whatever you told in the last class?
Okay, maybe I will just re-explain this thing. The example I will give tomorrow. Okay, so maybe yes, then let me share my screen. You can see my desktop, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what we are doing is something like this. So we have an original language L, and let's say a PDA M for it, and let's say some string XY in the language. Okay. Then you can make certain assumptions on M, maybe like this accepts by empty stack. This is not really a loss of generality, you know that. So what the machine does, the input is XY. The machine starts with something like this, and it consumes this, and eventually it has something like this, an empty stack, right? So I break it down in two parts, X and Y. The question is to design a PDA. In the grammar level, it may be very difficult to accept all strings of the form YX. Okay. So this machine first reads Y and then reads X. Okay. This is the basic idea, right? So somehow this PDA, if I call it M prime, this will try to simulate this M. Okay. But they operate under two distinct conditions, right? So after reading X, so let us look at this. This is the initial configuration for M. Then M consumes X. Then the stack contains certain thing. Okay, after this machine M reads the remaining part, and eventually the stack becomes empty. Right?
Yes,
Whereas,
sir.
look at M prime. So this is the working of M prime. M prime, for the moment, does not care about X. It works something like this. This symbol may be different anyway. Okay. So it will then have to consume Y. And then somehow it will have something in its stack. Then it will come, read X, and here eventually the stack becomes empty. Okay. So this is the operation of M prime. But you see that M and M prime, when they are both trying to process Y, are into different conditions with respect to the content of their stacks. Here you have possibly something. Okay. Here you have just the start symbol. Okay. And here I do not know what I have. Eventually, after consuming Y, this jump can be made non-deterministically. So M prime may assume that the end of y is reached. It then simply jumps to the state and reaches the rest of the input and eventually ends up with this empty string. So now the stack is empty, right? So throughout this process, it will keep on guessing what might be in this stack. And these guesses will be stored in its stack. So this phase is called, let us call it the guess phase. Okay. Then after this guess phase completes, the machine M prime non-deterministically moves to this phase, and let us call it the validation phase. And the jump from the guess phase to the validation phase can be made non-deterministically at any point. Okay. Now, in the guess phase, whatever the machine guessed about the content of the stack, this is now stored in the stack. And in the validation phase, the machine will not only simulate M on X, it will also validate that the guesses made by M prime in the guess phase are conforming with the working for this part. So that is the basic idea. So this is the line of the proof. By the example, I will make it explicit how these guesses are made and how this validation actually this phase.
Sir,
Yeah.
M prime. So one thing that M prime simulates M in the validation phase, right? So it basically
both phase. This is just a working of M starting at any arbitrary center in any arbitrary midpoint, okay, anywhere. And since now M prime does not have the exact stack of M, okay, it will guess, it will keep on simulating M, but the simulation will require the stack, and therefore it will make certain assumptions about the stack. So M must have the stack, and those assumptions or guesses are stored in the own stack of M prime.
So, sir, during the guess phase, is Y consumed or Y consumed after the guess phase? Like after building up the stack?
This entire phase, this entire consumption of Y is associated with multiple guesses, potentially multiple guesses. So, all guesses will be stored one after another in the stack, and alongside that, Y is consumed.
So, sir, first we build up the stack and then consume Y, or do we do that simultaneously?
No. That's what we argued, that if, of course, we can do that. We can, M prime can non-deterministically build a stack. Okay.
Yeah, all the possible stacks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It keeps on non-deterministically pushing things on the top of the stack. And at some point of time, it may just assume that this might be the content of M. So this is fine, no problem. M prime can do that. And one of these guesses must be correct. It will give you exactly this stack. Okay. The problem is that after this, M and M prime may consume exactly in the same way. But then, since M ends up with an empty stack, M prime will also end up with empty stack.
Can't tell where to stop.
So that has a problem. That has two problems. First of all, M prime cannot proceed with an empty stack. Second, it has already lost all the guesses. Right? If it proceeds like M, it has lost all these guesses. So when it comes back, there is no way to verify that the guesses were correct.
Right.
Okay. So this initial guessing idea will not help. You keep on guessing, store the guesses, and in this phase, when you come back, you just validate.
Okay, so like by consuming Y, we build up a stack, and with that stack, we validate X.
Yeah. So actually what I will do in this validation phase, I'm sorry, in the guessing phase, first of all, we will have this. And I will use a separator, let us call S. So all guesses are stored here. And on the top of this, whatever is needed for simulation of M. This is how this stack for M prime will be organized. The guesses will be stored here. There is a separator, a lead kind of stuff, S. After and above that, you have whatever is necessary for simulation of M. Okay.
So like the guess that is being stored is X, but in reverse order.
Yes, it will be stored in the reverse order, and that is very important.
And then we can pop it off in that way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
So this is a complicated construction, but anyway, you can see that whenever you have some external memory, things become much more complicated. For a DFA, it was pretty straightforward, right? But now you have the obligation to handle some external memory.
So the real complication is that we have a stack and not random access memory. Random access memory makes things a lot simpler.
No, actually no. They make things even more complex.
Okay, maybe at a proof level, yeah, probably.
Maybe in this context, it may make yeah. The stack is still something which you can handle, but if you have a complete random access memory, simulating that may be a very, very difficult idea. Anyway, that's not the issue. So anyway, we are running out of time today. So this idea I will elaborate using an example. So I have pictures. I have prepared some pictures. So using those, I will just elaborate this idea. Yeah. So anyway, you still think about this scheme. I have not yet explicitly mentioned your guesses. So there is a separator. You store your guesses here. On this, above this separator, you have whatever is necessary for this machine, for this simulation to run. And when this part above S part becomes empty, okay, the simulation cannot proceed. Then you make another guess, store that guess beneath S, and now you have guessed something here, so you can M prime can proceed with the simulation further. Okay. So in terms of our books, essentially, let's say for the working of M, something like some symbol, let's say U is needed on the top of the stack. But U is not there because this is empty. Okay. So what M prime does, out of nothing, it creates two things, U and U prime. So U is the matter, U prime is the antimatter. So there is no harm in creating something from nothing if they cancel each other. So U it will store on the top of this S separator. U prime it will push beneath S. Now, since U is available here, it can proceed with the simulation. At the same time, the gas U prime will stay. Okay. So this way, all the gases are stored in the reverse order. Now in the validation phase, at some point of time, U must be pushed here by M. Right. Otherwise, how did U come in this stack? So at that point of time, you will simply remove this S, let this U and U prime cancel. Okay, so in the gas phase, you created matter and antimatter out of nothing. Now U and U prime collide and vanish. So matter and antimatter simply vanishes. Something like this.
Sir, at the beginning, how can the same gases be made for storing and for simulation of them?
That's the reason I have to give you an example. But this is the basic idea. You think, why don't you think? I will give you an explicit example tomorrow.
So, sir, this algorithm is kind of exponential if you think about it in an algorithmic sense.
Why?
Because we are making lots of guesses and like most of them are discarded.
Well. If you think of the working of M itself, at every
Probably
point,
exponential.
there is the question of non-determinism. So the computation tree for M also can be exponential.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. So for the moment, we are not talking about running time. So maybe we will come to that later. But this is the power of non-determinism. M prime can guess the stack of M, stores, and eventually validates.
So it sort of gives us a rudimentary form of, what do you call that, branching.
Don't think about this branching. Instead, just think about this. This is the power of guessing. M prime does not know what is Y, what is X. So the jump from this guess phase to validation phase, that is also a non-deterministic choice.
It tries every possible jump.
Yeah. So if everything works out fine, then M prime accepts YX if and only if M accepts XY. That's the idea.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so it's past 10. So let us call it a day. So we will meet tomorrow.